Okay, before we get started, a couple things. One, the following theory is based solely on evidence from the films, not the books. That's because the films are an adaptation of the books, not an extension or a continuation. They're completely separate, different things. There are certain details across the books and the films that are completely different from each other. Characters may be missing or added. Some characters may even say completely different things. Events happen and unfold differently between the books and the films. So this theory is only taking the films into consideration. And two, this theory is going to contain major spoilers for the entire Harry Potter franchise. So if you haven't seen the Harry Potter films or read the books, then stop now. Otherwise, if you don't care, or if you've already seen them and read them, let's go. I've watched the Harry Potter films many times over the years, and each time I was always confused why Hermione Granger ended up with Ron Weasley. Throughout the series, Ron's especially to Hermione, like in the Sorcerer's Stone. After the students practiced the levitation charm Wingardium Leviosa, Ron openly mocks Hermione to his classmates. Hermione happens to overhear the cruel conversation and runs by, crying.
She's a nightmare, honestly. No wonder she hasn't got any friends.
And in The Prisoner of Azkaban, near the beginning of the movie, Ron makes some vicious comments about Hermione's pet cat, Crookshanks. Later in the film, Ron makes additional nasty comments about her pet.
It's a cat, Ronald. What do you expect? It's in his nature.
A cat? Is that what they told you? Looks more like a pig with hair, if you ask me. Harry, you've seen the way that bloodthirsty beast of hers was always lurking about. And Scabbers is gone.
Well, maybe you should learn to take better care of your pets.
Your cat killed him.
Did not.
Did?
Also in The Prisoner of Azkaban, after Hagrid reveals that Ron's pet, Scabbers, is actually alive, Hermione attempts to elicit an apology out of Ron for his earlier nasty comments. But instead, Ron offers a disingenuous apology to her cat instead of her, out of spite.
Scabbers! You're alive!
Want to keep a closer eye on your pets, Ron.
I think that means you owe someone an apology.
Right. Next time I see Crookshanks, I'll let him know.
I meant me.
And here's one you may not have actually noticed. In The Goblet of Fire, when the Quidditch World Cup is attacked by the Death Eaters, Arthur Weasley explicitly tells the children to stick together and run for the portkey. During this scene, Ron starts running with Hermione, but fails to wait for her, leaving her behind completely while she stops to wait for Harry. Later on in The Goblet of Fire, during class, Ron laments about finding a date for the Yule Ball, then turns to Hermione as a last resort.
Hermione, you're a girl.
Oh, well spotted.
Come with one of us. Oh.
When he does, Ron tries to shame Hermione into saying yes by stating,
One thing for a bloke to show up alone. For a girl, it's just sad.
I won't be going alone because, believe it or not, someone's asked me.
and then later on, at the Yule Ball, Hermione sits with Harry and Ron while her dance partner gets drinks. She's elated at the fun experience she's having, which triggers Ron to make several sharp comments in an attempt to destroy her good mood.
It's got your wand in a knot.
It's a Durmstrang. You're fraternizing with the enemy.
The enemy? Who was it wanting his autograph? Besides, the whole point of the tournament is international magical cooperation. To make friends.
I think he's got a bit more than friendship on his mind. He's using you.
How dare you! Besides, I can take care of myself.
Doubt it. He's way too old.
What? What? That's what you think?
Yeah, that's what I think.
You know the solution then, don't you?
Go on.
Next time there's a ball, pluck up the courage and ask me before somebody else does. And not as a last resort.
Well, that's just completely off the point. Harry.
Where have you been? Never mind, off to bed, both of you.
They get scary when they get older.
Ron, you spoiled everything! What's this about?
Showing that Ron continues to be a spiteful,
All right, foul gift.
Then, in Order of the Phoenix, Ron says he'll go easy on Hermione, downplaying her abilities as a student wizard.
I'll go easy on you.
Thanks, Ron.
Even though we all know Hermione is amazing, and he does especially. After Hermione easily beats Ron in one move, he downplays her accomplishment by stating he intended to lose.
I let her do that. It's good manners, isn't it? It's completely intentional.
And in The Half-Blood Prince, during an after-game victory celebration, Ron is pulled into a kiss with Lavender Brown in front of a cheering crowd, including Hermione. Ron makes no attempt to stop the kiss and embraces it instead. Keep in mind that by this time in the film series, Ron and Hermione are already supposed to kind of be liking each other. So for Ron to do this in front of Hermione is doubly disgusting and vile. As if that wasn't bad enough, right after that scene, Ron gleefully skips through the halls with Lavender Brown and stumbles upon a crying Hermione. Though he sees that she's distraught, Ron doesn't apologize or show any remorse. He sees that his actions have hurt Hermione, and yet he continues to run off with Lavender.
A pugno.
Yet, for some reason, Hermione decides this behavior is perfectly acceptable and a great foundation for a beautiful marriage. And so I always wondered, where did the connection between them happen? But after watching the films for the 50th time, this time I noticed something very strange.
Go on.
In the Deathly Hallows Part 2, Ron Weasley casts the Imperius curse on Bogrod, the Goblin Teller.
Thieves! You gave up the
Imperius!
keys, you...
And notice here that Ron effortlessly uses the Imperius curse on Bogrod without any hesitation, as though it were practiced and perfected. When cast successfully, the Imperius curse places the victim completely under the caster's control, unless the victim is strong enough to resist it. And it's one of 3 unforgivable curses that witches and wizards are forbidden to use. And notice that Bogrod remains under the effects of the Imperius curse until his own demise at the fiery breath of the security dragon. Meaning, it's not just a fluke. Ron Weasley knew how to use the curse. But why does Ron know how to use this curse? At first, I thought he originally learned about it during Mad-Eye Moody's lesson about the unforgivable curses in the Goblet of Fire. But when I watched the scene again, I realized I was wrong. Mad-Eye calls upon Ron to volunteer the name of one of the curses. Out of all 3 curses, Ron provides the Imperius curse and says that he learned about it from his father, thus showing Ron was already familiar with the curse.
Give us a curse.
Well, my dad did tell me about one. The Imperius curse.
Oh, yeah, your father would know all about that.
Which leads us to our next question. When did Ron practice the Imperius curse in order to get good enough to charm a Goblin Teller so effortlessly? Casting a spell in the wizarding world isn't as simple as waving a wand and reading an incantation. If that were true, Lord Voldemort and his Death Eaters wouldn't be nearly as threatening. As we've seen in the films, the ability to successfully perform any spell comes the same way any good skill does, through practice and proper form. We see this throughout the series, such as in the Sorcerer's Stone when the students are learning Wingardium Leviosa. Ron himself struggles to lift a feather, while Seamus's feather explodes. And in the Chamber of Secrets, Professor Gilderoy turns Harry's broken arm into jello, trying to mend it. And in The Prisoner of Azkaban, Harry has to practice a lot in order to effectively use the Patronus charm. Even chosen ones have to get good, proving that spells aren't successful when cast by someone who doesn't know what they're doing.
Obviously.
So right now you might be remembering that Harry also used the Imperius curse on a goblin.
Imperium. Very well, Madame Lestrange. If you will follow me.
Was he running around practicing it on random people? Maybe it's just an easier spell to cast. But Harry has demonstrated, on multiple occasions, a talent for spell mastery due to his unique circumstances. I would argue that part of the reason why Harry was able to cast the Imperius Curse so effectively in the Deathly Hallows Part 2 without prior training is because he's Voldemort's Horcrux, and thus has been shown to inherit some of the Dark Lord's abilities, such as Harry's ability to naturally speak Parseltongue.
I spoke a different language? But I didn't realize it. How can I speak a language without knowing I can?
Otherwise, if the curse were really so easy to cast, why wouldn't everybody just cast it for anything? So we understand why Harry can cast the curse so easily, but Ron doesn't have any ties to the Dark Lord, nor the ability to master spells easily. In fact, Ron's been historically slow at learning spells.
Look, stop. You're going to take someone's eye out.
So when and on whom did Ron practice the curse to become so effective at it? He practiced on Hermione Granger. Which explains why she suddenly fell in love with him.
You liar!
Okay, before you click away from the video, think about it. Ron was a jerk to Hermione across multiple films, and then, suddenly, she's all over him. Being giddy around him, staying at his house, and calling him brilliant? Really? And before you think that's completely out of character for Ron, strap in, because there's actually a lot of evidence showing that Ron...
Alright, Fal, get...
But first, before we get into his character, let's talk about motive. Why would Ron even want to mind control Hermione? It's because he's jealous of her affection for Harry, and is tired of being in Harry's shadow.
Silence!
Yes, dearest gentle viewer. There are actually multiple signs throughout the series that Hermione might have liked Harry more than a friend. In the Sorcerer's Stone, after Hermione repairs Harry's glasses, she recognizes him even though Harry's scar isn't visible, which means she already knew a lot about Harry. Simple moments of infatuation like this are often the foundation of young crushes that lead to romantic interests.
I'm Hermione Granger. And you are?
Ron Weasley.
Pleasure.
And in the Chamber of Secrets, Harry is reunited with Hermione in Diagon Alley, where she ends up repairing his glasses once again with a warm smile and bright eyes.
Oculus Reparo.
I definitely need to remember that one.
You'll be all right now then, Harry? Right, I'll leave you to it.
Later in the movie, when Hermione is cured from the basilisk's petrification curse, she crashes into Harry first, with huge smiles and a big loving hug, before turning to Ron with a lukewarm greeting.
Well, welcome back, Hermione.
In The Prisoner of Azkaban, when Professor McGonagall tells Harry he's unable to attend the field trip to Hogsmeade, Hermione looks back at Harry twice after their initial goodbye, and even gives him an extra little wave goodbye. While this is partly due to Hermione feeling bad about Harry's situation, the way she lingers is a clear sign that she likes him, and wished he could have been there with her. Also in The Prisoner of Azkaban, during a Quidditch match, Harry is attacked by a Dementor and falls unconscious. When he wakes up, Hermione is at his bedside looking terrified and then relieved. She locks eyes with Harry the entire time and even plays with her hair, a classic sign of infatuation. And in The Goblet of Fire, when the Quidditch World Cup game is attacked, Hermione fearfully calls out for Harry several times while being dragged away by Ron. Also, just before the first Triwizard Tournament trial, Hermione enters the Champions tent and lovingly embraces Harry out of fear and worry.
Young love. How?
Stirring.
And again, after the second trial, Hermione rushes to check on Harry and even gives him a kiss on the head. I don't recall Hermione ever giving Ron any kisses in between his fits of foul gittness. And finally, at the end of the Goblet of Fire, Hermione encourages both Ron and Harry to write to her over the summer break. When Ron dismisses her offer with a snide remark, "Such husband material," she turns hopefully to Harry and is elated when he says that he will. And this isn't just a series of isolated incidents being misinterpreted. Even Albus Dumbledore, a powerful wizard with keen intuition and sharp intellect, thought Harry and Hermione might have been together.
What about your activities outside the classroom?
Sir?
Well, I notice you spend a great deal of time with Miss Granger. I can't help wondering if...
Oh, no. I mean, she's brilliant, and we're friends. But no.
Forgive me. I was merely being curious.
Now imagine you're Ron. You're the youngest of 5 older brothers who's always in trouble and being howled at, constantly being teased by your older siblings, and you're given embarrassing hand-me-down items over the years. And to top it all off, you're a Weasley. You're a Weasley, Harry, who are looked down on by other wizard families. It's not easy being successful in that kind of situation.
Draco Malfoy. Think my name was funny, do you? With no need to ask you yours. Red hair and a hand-me-down robe. You must be a Weasley.
Where have you been? Harry, how wonderful to see you, dear. Bed's empty, no note, car gone. You could have died. You could have been seen. Of course, I don't blame you, Harry, dear.
They were starving him, Mum. There were bars on his window.
Well, you best hope I don't put bars on your window, Ronald Weasley. Come on, Harry. Time for a spot of breakfast.
Let me see. Red hair, vacant expressions. Tatty, second-hand book. You must be at the Weasleys.
Ronald Weasley! How dare you steal that car? I am absolutely disgusted! Your father's now facing an inquiry at work, and it's entirely your fault! If you put another toe out of line, we'll bring you straight home! Oh, and Ginny, dear, congratulations on making Gryffindor. Your father and I are so proud.
It's about time, son. Sorry, Amos. Some of us had a bit of a sleepy start. This is Amos Diggory, everyone.
Oh, look, Mum sent me something. Mum sent me a dress.
Well, it does match your eyes. Is there a bonnet? Aha! Nose down, Harry. Ginny, these must be for you.
I'm not wearing that. It's ghastly.
What are you on about?
They're not for Ginny. They're for you.
One person couldn't feel all that. It'd explode.
Just because you've got the emotional range of a teaspoon.
How much for this?
5 galleons.
How much for me?
5 galleons.
I'm your brother.
10 galleons.
Come on, let's go.
Know what would make all of that worse? If one day you met a boy who was stupidly famous, obscenely rich, ludicrously successful no matter what he did, and was always the center of everyone's attention. And then that boy becomes your best friend, so that any light of success you have instantly becomes darkened by the shadow of his greatness. Imagine how frustrating that must feel after a few years. Taking a look at first impressions in the Sorcerer's Stone, when Ron first meets Harry on the Hogwarts Express, he is so poor he's unable to purchase anything from the trolley. But Harry flaunts his vast wealth by purchasing the entire cart. This would be awesome for a young Ron at first, but as he grows older, this would eventually become unbearable. Then, Harry is invited to be on the Quidditch team after barely starting the school year.
years never make the house teams. You must be the youngest Quidditch player in a century, according to McGonagall.
Some of Ron's older siblings had been on the Gryffindor Quidditch team, and the films show that Ron was hopeful to follow in their footsteps, so it must have burned to see some kid come and take a spot on the team, thinking it might just be because he's Harry Potter. As if that wasn't enough, Harry is also gifted the Nimbus 2000.
That's not just a broomstick, Harry. It's a Nimbus 2000.
The best flying broom in the entire school at the time, and the gift was from a professor. If you were in Ron's position, you would definitely notice the blatant favoritism shown to the great Harry Potter. And when you're always in the shadow of your friend's glory, you start becoming resentful and jealous, which prompts you to do things that make you feel successful and in control. And there's been times when Ron sours on Harry for seemingly no rational reason. And other times, Ron purposely goes out of his way to keep Hermione away from Harry. For example, in the Goblet of Fire, after it's announced that Harry Potter will participate in the incredibly dangerous Triwizard Tournament, Ron becomes upset with Harry.
I didn't ask for this to happen, Ron. Okay? You're being stupid.
Yeah, that's me. Ron Weasley, Harry Potter's stupid friend.
I didn't put my name in that cup. I don't want eternal glory. I just want to be... Look, I don't know what happened tonight, and I don't know why. It just did. Okay?
Piss off.
Clearly showing that some part of Ron actually does resent being Harry's friend deep down. And again, going back to the attack on the Quidditch World Cup, remember the clip of Ron dragging Hermione away from Harry? Instead of stopping to help his supposed best friend, Ron makes it a priority to drag Hermione away from him. In The Half-Blood Prince, Hermione expresses concern about Harry while leaving the Hogwarts Express, but Ron immediately dismisses her concern while urging her to follow him off the train. Ron shows no concern for Harry and is quick to pull Hermione away the minute she asks about him.
Where's Harry?
He's probably already on the platform. Come on.
And Harry hasn't always been the nicest friend to Ron either.
Do you believe the rubbish he's come out with about you and all who?
Yeah, I do. Has anyone else got a problem with Harry? You alright?
Fine.
Shame it's just bang out of order, mate. But he'll come through. We'll see.
I said I'm fine, Ron.
Right. I'll just leave you to your thoughts, then.
But the most damning evidence of all, the one that shows us the true thoughts that plague Ron Weasley's mind, is in the Deathly Hallows, when Slytherin's locket, one of Voldemort's 7 Horcruxes, reveals his darkest fears and anxieties.
I have seen your heart, and it is mine. I have seen your dreams, Ron Weasley, and I have seen your fears. Least loved by your mother who craved a daughter. Least loved by the girl who prefers your friend. Run!
We were better without you. Happier without you.
Who could look at you compared to Harry Potter? What are you compared with the chosen one?
Ron, it's lying! Your mother confessed she would have preferred me as a son.
What woman would take you? You are nothing. Nothing. Nothing compared to him.
Among the truths that we learn about Ron through the locket are that Ron's mother always wanted a daughter. Ron's mother also admitted one time that she would have preferred Harry as her son. In the locket's shadow of Hermione also said,
Who could look at you past Harry Potter? What are you compared with the chosen one?
Who could look at you compared to Harry Potter? It reinforces all of the evidence we just reviewed, that Ron feels inferior to Harry, that he feels that his family doesn't love him, and that he'll never have a girl like Hermione because of Harry. Now, could the locket have been lying in order to cripple Ron Weasley's spirit?
No.
If all the locket's words were complete lies, Ron would have never been paralyzed by them. The locket only whispered whatever dark thoughts already existed in Ron's heart. This confirms that Ron was indeed jealous of Harry, indeed frustrated about not being able to get the girl, and insecure about his relationship with his family. All of this, added with the other evidence, means that it is absolutely plausible that Ron may have been driven to desperation at one point, whether he meant to or not. So now that we have a motive, let's talk about Ron's proclivity toward dark behavior. Even if we might have a plausible motive, surely our sweet Wan would never even think about doing something so vile as to mind control Hermione, right?
That's rubbish! That's rubbish! You don't know what you're doing!
But actually, he's shown us that he might not be the most noble Gryffindor. In the Sorcerer's Stone, Harry wakes up after a harrowing battle with Quirrell and Voldemort to see that he received a whole trolley of get-well-soon gifts from his friends. Then, Dumbledore reveals that Ron apparently visited Harry while he was unconscious. That's actually pretty nice of Ron. I'm not sure why I put this clip on here.
I see that your friend Ronald has saved you the trouble of opening your chocolate frogs.
Oh, he didn't come to visit Harry and wish him well. He came to steal chocolate frogs from an injured child like a monster. Ron just went through hell with Harry to protect the Sorcerer's Stone from Voldemort, and here he is taking Harry's stuff while he's out cold. Boy, Ron only cared about himself. Oh well. Boys will be boys, I guess, except in the Goblet of Fire. While the trio are eating, Nigel Wolpert delivers a parcel to Ron, then awkwardly lingers there until Ron dismisses him. When Hermione gives Ron a questioning look, he admits that he promised Nigel Harry's autograph.
I told him I'd get him Harry's autograph.
Ron is literally using Harry to secure favors with other people. And of course, who could forget this heartwarming moment from the Deathly Hallows Part 1? During the scene at the diner, where the trio are deciding what to do with the fallen Death Eater, Anton and Dolohov, Ron Weasley immediately suggests murdering him. When Hermione meekly protests, Ron tries to justify his cruelty. Harry has to be the voice of reason by suggesting an alternate, less criminal solution.
Kill us if it was turned around, wouldn't you?
If we kill them, they'll know we were here.
Ron.
Suppose you did Mad Eye. How would you feel then?
It's better we wipe their memories.
You're the boss.
Now, keep in mind, Antonin is a criminal who has murdered others as well, so Ron's anger here is completely understandable. But the issue is how quickly and unflinchingly Ron is willing to go there at all, proving that he's not so pure of heart, and he could absolutely be driven to curse someone like Hermione for his own personal gain. So now we have a motive. Evidence that Ron had knowledge of the curse to carry out the act, and have seen evidence of Ron's darker personality. But according to the films, Imperius only works on weak-minded wizards. Would Ron really have been able to curse someone as strong-minded as Hermione?
Yes.
The films have demonstrated Hermione to be a strong wizard, amazingly smart and incredibly skilled in a variety of subjects and skill sets. Except when it comes to her friends.
She's a nightmare, honestly. No wonder she hasn't got any friends.
I think that means you owe someone an apology.
Right. Next time I see Crookshanks, I'll let him know.
I meant me.
Ron, you spoiled everything!
What's this about?
perfectly simple. You're
No,
being...
it's not. Hermione, whatever this is, it's not simple. You don't understand.
Then help us to.
Stress can also have a negative impact on a person's mental and emotional willpower. And in the films, we've seen Hermione go through a lot of emotional distress with her friends, from worrying about Harry's safety to running away crying because once again Ron was being...
All right, Fal, get...
The stress Hermione dealt with could have absolutely impacted her ability to counter the curse. And I believe Ron took advantage of that fact to groom Hermione and lower her defenses so that he could successfully curse her.
That's not possible.
Grooming is a tactic seen in abusive relationships, where a person's normal defenses, or strong wills, are overcome by slowly desensitizing them to abusive behaviors. And it often works by mixing positive behaviors with abusive ones. Like in the Goblet of Fire, while Harry is down by the lake with Neville, Hermione approaches with a message from Ron, who is seen standing just a yard behind her. It's clear Hermione is not thrilled about being Ron's personal owl, but she does it anyway. After failing the first attempt, Hermione tries to back out, but Ron forces her to continue.
Ronald would like me to tell you that Seamus told him that Dean was told by Parvati that Hagrid's looking for you.
Is that right? Well, what?
I don't know how to do this. Dean was told by Parvati that... Please don't ask me to say it again.
This is a clear example of manipulation, which is a form of abuse, where the manipulator, Ron, gets the victim to do something they don't want to do through a variety of techniques. Forcing Hermione to carry out such an asinine task is an attempt by Ron to assert his authority and will over her. And again in the Goblet of Fire, as Ron and Harry head to the Yule Ball, Ron suggests Hermione must be crying her eyes out because he's convinced she must have been lying about having a date to the Yule Ball and missed her chance to go out with him. He even condescendingly quips that he would take her out if she wasn't so bloody proud.
Poor kid. Bet she's alone in her room crying her eyes out.
Who?
Hermione, of course. Come on, Harry. Why do you think she wouldn't tell us who she's coming with?
Because we take the mickey out of her if she did.
Nobody asked her. I would have taken her myself if she wasn't so bloody proud.
Even though Ron pretends to be in control of his emotions, it's obvious he's not. When he meets with his date, Padma Patil, he's very clearly disappointed and upset that his date isn't Hermione, and then proceeds to take it out on her by forcefully dragging her by the arm.
Proceed into the Great Hall with Miss Patil. Oh, there you are.
Come on, then.
Come along this way.
This is a subtle but dark example of how abusers try to control the narrative in their own minds and in the minds of others. And when reality conflicts with that narrative, they become aggressive. Sometimes it's physical abuse, but other times it can be little microaggressions like pulling someone by the arm. Unfortunately, it's easy for victims to completely overlook or excuse these microaggressions. Either way, what happened to Ron in this scene isn't Padma's fault, so for him to treat her this way, like just some object, and throw her around by the arm, is completely inappropriate and vile. And then, in the Deathly Hallows Part 1, after Harry suggests wiping the memories of the fallen Death Eater, Anton and Dolohov, Ron approaches Hermione, caresses her face, then tells her to do it.
It's better we wipe their memories.
You're the boss. Hermione, you're the best of spells.
Obliviate.
This scene always gave me the ick, and now I know why. This is a grim example of the grooming process, where the abuser, Ron, asks their victim, Hermione, to perform various acts that make them feel as guilty as the abuser. Ron further imposes himself onto her by making physical contact prior to giving a command. Note that Ron doesn't ask. If he truly cared about Hermione, he would realize that wiping someone's memory might be a sensitive subject, considering she just had to wipe her own parents' memories. Instead, Ron commands her to do it, and Hermione follows through without any protest, though she's visibly incredibly uncomfortable with it. Later in the movie, while in search of a way to destroy Slytherin's locket, the trio take turns carrying the Horcrux. While Ron carries the locket, he starts being overwhelmed by its darkness. Just being near the locket draws out the darkest fears and anxieties of a person. In this case, it happens to be Ron's jealousy of Harry and Hermione. Ron's jealousy eventually becomes so unbearable that he fights with Harry and decides to leave. But before he leaves, he stops to ask Hermione if she's staying or going.
And you? Are you coming or are you staying? Fine. I get it. I saw you two the other night.
Ron, there's nothing. Ron! Ron, where are you going? Come back. Ron! Ron!
This is an example of basic coercive techniques often used by abusers, where the abuser, Ron, tries to maintain his control by forcing the victim to choose between them or something else. It's like a horrific all-or-nothing scenario where the victim, who clearly has feelings for the abuser, is muddled by the sudden pressure to abruptly make a major, life-changing decision. Typically, the victim in this situation would surrender to the side of the abuser because the pressure of making that kind of decision in the moment is too great, and it's hard for anyone to just walk away from an established relationship. But in this case, we see Hermione actually resist. It's pretty clear that at this point, Ron's only method of maintaining relationships is through coercion, manipulation, and mind control. As you can see, Ron isn't just some insensitive brat. He's an abusive friend and a manipulator. The fact that Hermione is a victim of abuse and a victim of the Imperius curse becomes even more clear during the Deathly Hallows, when Ron decides to leave out of jealousy. After Ron leaves, Harry and Hermione instantly start connecting, almost as if Hermione changes without Ron's influence. And what's particularly interesting about this scene is the lyrics of the song playing in the background, "Oh Children" by Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. Ron just left Hermione. If Hermione were naturally in love with him, she would be shattered and heartbroken. And at first, she was definitely distraught. But not only does she quickly warm up to Harry, smiling at him the way she used to, but listen to the very particular choice of lyrics in the background. I won't play the song here in case of copyright, but here they are. "Hey little train, wait for me. I once was blind, but now I see. Have you left a seat for me? Is that such a stretch of the imagination? Hey little train, wait for me. I was held in chains, but now I'm free." It's almost as if the filmmakers intended this. So now we have to determine, when did it all happen? At what point did Ron lose himself and do the unthinkable to Hermione? Considering all of the evidence, I believe sometime during the Order of the Phoenix, Ron Weasley used the Imperius curse on Hermione Granger.
Your evidence?
This is the time we start to see Hermione hang around Ron a little more closely, but she hasn't started falling all over him yet. That happens during the events of the Half-Blood Prince, where Hermione's not only sleeping over at Ron's house a few days before the start of the school year, but she's also looking at him more and becoming incredibly upset when he runs off with other girls. Because, of course, Ron's... More specifically, I think it happened during the winter break of the school year during Order of the Phoenix. Inside the House of Black, the Weasleys celebrate the Christmas holiday with the return of Arthur Weasley, who had been previously attacked, and exchange presents. When Ron opens his present, Hermione smiles warmly at him. This is actually odd, because in the previous scene, Hermione is digging at Ron with her usual sharp wit.
Just because you've got the emotional range of a teaspoon.
There's really no reason for her to smile at Ron like that during something as simple as unwrapping a present, unless something had happened between them. Maybe they cozied up during the winter break. Or maybe Ron decided he'd had enough of being the sidekick of the group and used the Imperius curse on Hermione for the first time.
Oh my god!
And this scene occurs after Harry snaps at Ron, who was only trying to help.
We'll see. I said I'm fine, Ron.
Right. I'll just leave you to your thoughts then.
Notice, too, in this scene that Hermione does not greet Harry when he arrives. In the past, Hermione's typically given Harry big, bright welcomes, but here, she only gives him a frowning glance. This could suggest that Ron used the Imperius curse to also tone down Hermione's enthusiasm for Harry. Also pay close attention to the way Ron quickly shoots a glance at Hermione when Harry walks in. Almost as if he's checking to see her reaction towards him, and to see if the curse and grooming actually worked. Okay, I can hear you furiously typing that Hermione shows no signs of being under the Imperius curse. Now, the films have been pretty inconsistent with how the Imperius curse is shown and depicted. For example, in the Goblet of Fire, victims of the Imperius curse are shown to have milky eyes. But during Mad-Eye Moody's lesson of the unforgivable curses, the professor says that many wizards and witches claim they only followed Lord Voldemort because they were under the influence of the Imperius curse, and implied that it was a challenge to determine which ones were lying about being cursed, as if you couldn't always really tell if they were cursed or not.
Scores of witches and wizards have claimed that they only did you-know-who's bidding under the influence of the Imperius curse. But here's the rub. How do we sort out the liars?
This would suggest that, for the films, the Imperius curse doesn't always manifest itself in a visible way. Like in the Deathly Hallows, when Ron and Harry cast the Imperius curse on the Goblin Tellers, the goblins don't adopt any physical characteristics that would imply that they're bewitched. Based on this, we can safely assume that people under the Imperius curse are not always going to show obvious signs. Now here's the thing, while I'm convinced Ron bewitched Hermione at some point, I don't believe Hermione was under the influence of the Imperius curse the entire time. I believe Ron used the curse just a few times in short bursts, just long enough to start grooming Hermione so that she notices him instead of Harry. And I also believe that the kiss Ron and Hermione share in the Deathly Hallows Part 2 was not because Hermione was actively under the Imperius curse at the time, but was a direct consequence of Hermione being groomed over multiple cursing sessions. If you're still not convinced, if there's still a shred of doubt lingering after all of the evidence, then let me leave you with one last thing. At the end of Deathly Hallows Part 2, when our beloved trio of friends, now adults with children of their own, watch their children ride towards Hogwarts on the Hogwarts Express, notice Ron's expression. Hermione is smiling. Harry is smiling. But Ron looks destroyed. He just stares forward with a vacant expression and eyes devoid of any joy, as if he knows he's imprisoned himself in the false life he created. So in conclusion, Ron definitely used the Imperius curse on Hermione Granger to make her fall in love with him, and therefore, that makes Ron
A right foul git, you know that?
I think so.
I know so.
Anything else?
Yeah, stay away from me.
Fine.